In just a second here, I'm going to get to what is really point number one, even more important than that issue right there, is as big as it is. I was checking real quick, even while you were talking just a second here, to see if there had been any updates from the Iranian side, from any of their number of state-run information agencies, whatever, talking about, did they actually agree that the U.S. could call the shots on how the frozen funds were going to be used, et cetera? So far, nothing at all. No denunciations or no comments. But there was this one from Ghalibaf here. He is headed to, this is just a couple of hours ago, he is headed to Oman. Iran's chief negotiator left Tehran from Muscat minutes ago to set up and hold talks in the Sultan of Oman, enhancing bilateral cooperation and joint efforts to stabilize the Iranian arrangements for managing the Strait of Hormuz. Now, President Trump has been beside himself of saying no. In fact, he put out a Truth Social maybe yesterday saying that the Iranian side is not going to be able to charge fees for 60 days, and they're not going to be able to charge fees after 60 days. And so far, every Iranian official I've talked to or read has said, oh, we definitely will, starting with day one, 61, we're going to be doing that. And now here he is going and working with Oman to get that done. Is this going to be something that the U.S. can negotiate away from the Iranians?
So, first of all, Trump says...
Well, thanks for that, Gary. I see that on the screen there.
I think Vance was alluding to Trump. He's saying he's got a 60-day option. After that, he can do whatever he wants. This is not a Florida timeshare deal. This is an supposedly international binding agreement. What are you talking about? 60-day option, and you can do whatever you want. This is back to the real problem. What Trump calls a deal, the reason he uses the term deal, because it's so amorphous and there's no structure to it, and it can change from minute to minute, that you can never prove whether it actually worked or not, or whether you abided by it or not, or whether it was broken or not. And that's the whole point of using a vague term deal. When you drill down to specifics, and we're talking about international relations here between sovereign states, between governments, these aren't deals. These are very, very calculated. You have a memorandum of understanding, which is basically an agreement that both parties are going to agree to negotiate going forward. That's all it is, and it's laying out a pre-framework, not any kind of a binding framework. It's pre-negotiations. The real negotiations haven't started yet, but they have to carry on with this theater. The way the U.S. comes with all this massive entourage, putting on this big show. You've got J.D. Vance grandstanding, campaigning for 2028 already. It's embarrassing. But at the end of the day, the Iranians haven't agreed to. J.D. Vance, I think, even said something crazy. He said that, now the Iranians have agreed to allow International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors into the country. And that's not something they were doing before. But thanks to President Trump's strength and whatever, that has not been agreed.
No, they emphatically said that's the case. They said, no, we did not agree to anything like that.
So are you I'm concerned. Are you concerned that you have the vice president who's supposedly in charge of these negotiations, telling things that huge that are completely false? I mean, that kind of concerns me that the U.S. don't actually have a serious team. They're not doing any serious work with this. They're just grandstanding, getting photo ops, getting good sound bites for the press. And the other thing that was really, Danny, I have to say, this was just a bridge too far. J.D. Vance said, well, the president didn't really threaten the Iranians very much. No, the Iranians threatened us, and the president's going to respond. When we're threatened, they're going to respond first. And he's covering for his boss in the most kind of sophomoric way. The Iranians did not threaten the United States. That's a lie. That's a lie. But Trump threatened. He threatened to take over Straits of Hormuz, charge tolls, take Iran's oil, and use the tolls to pay for the U.S. military operation there. Then threatened to kill the negotiators. Threatened to wipe out the rest of Iran, the country. He did all of these things in the middle of high-level negotiations, almost like trying to sabotage the negotiations. So that's not nothing. And these aren't hollow threats. The United States has done it already. They have killed the Iranian head of state. So, it's all a big joke for America and for people in Washington. They just don't, this is not real for them. For Iran, it's very real. Their head of state was killed during negotiations in a sneak attack by the United States and Israel. That's serious. So they're not going to trust the United States going forward. So I don't think the U.S. is doing themselves any favors by having their sort of, inexperienced 41-year-old vice president telling lies at major on the world stage, provable lies. And I've got others, I think, that he told as well during all that. But he's just kind of, it's meaningless. It's like Trump is saying, just flood the zone with talking points and then let's see what sticks. This is not how it's going to go. The Iranians are very, 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 very clear on what this is. The same conversation with Ukraine, Danny. The Russians have been very super clear, like concrete the whole time. And America's just been wavering around, totally chaotic and inconsistent. And what's the result? Nothing, no deal. And this will end up the same if they keep on like this.
Yeah, and everything you talk about what J.D. Vance had said and what others have reported after this, I think it was 18 hours total negotiation period had ended. Well, one of the things that the Iranian side said, Abbas Araghchi, and you'll notice the use of the past tense in a number of these places here. He said, Pakistani Qatari mediation has delivered major progress to end the Lebanon war. So I want to shift over to that because that's point number one, as we'll see in a second. Oil and petrochemical exports are waived, blockade lifted, some frozen assets released, and major reconstruction development plan launched for Iran. Then he's talking about the Lebanon deconfliction cell. But all of those things there, Araghchi's claiming have already been done. And whereas when you have, whether it's J.D. Vance or Steve Witkoff or some of these other folks like Rubio, sometimes we'll talk after the fact and say things that weren't really part of the negotiations. That has typically not been the modus operandi for the Iranian side. And when they say here that, yes, these things have all been agreed to, which they said had to be done up front, with the release of funds, with the release of sanctions, and the opening of the blockade of the Strait. They said those things have to be happening. Now, to this one point, there have been some reciprocal statements by the U.S. The state not finance department, the Treasury Department has issued some sanctions waivers. So that does seem to be one thing that's going through here. But we have to get back to this issue of Lebanon. And let me just, for those who may not have seen it, this is the text here. And this is a full text of the official text that was released here. And you see, sure enough, point number one, paragraph one, right out of the box here, is that there has to be, in the current war, signing this declaration, declare an immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, specifically to include Lebanon. Now, that's what the declaration says. That's what President Trump agreed to and he signed. But then now listen to how General Jack Keane is going to characterize the situation in Lebanon now.
Iran is pushing Hezbollah into the south with all the capability they possibly can and to continue the war. And what they're trying to do is make the deal with Iran all a part of Hezbollah and Israel's fight. And I think the more we de-link that, the better off we are. Because Hezbollah, based on everything we have seen, is going to continue to violate this ceasefire. And Iran is going to continue to use it as leverage against the United States.
Now, I'm going to get to who started and who reacted, whatever, separately. But I want to key in on that first thing he said there. We need to de-link these things. Like, that's a choice that we can make. What do you make of any prospect of de-linking Lebanon with the larger ceasefire between us and Iran?
Well, he's echoing what Lindsey Graham's been parading around the media, saying it's a desperate, like they can de-link it, like they can flip the dynamic, where the U.S. now would have the upper hand in the region, and Iran would have to be reacting to U.S. actions. That's just simply unrealistic. The die has been cast already. You're seeing the fact that you've got these other partners involved, the Gulf states and so forth. You're seeing a major shift, a major realignment in the power distribution, the geopolitics in the region. It's actually happening right now. So what I think is, Jack Keane can blow hot air all he wants. And by the way, what he says is just so fundamentally wrong. And here's another problem, Danny, is that so many people in Washington they cling to assumptions and talking points, mostly coming from IPAC, by the way, that are fundamentally untrue. That Iran is pushing Hezbollah to do this, to do that into southern Lebanon. Just an outright lie. It's so false. It doesn't. It's unbelievably false. Israel's carpet bombing South Lebanon. Hezbollah are Lebanese people. They're defending their homeland from a what would absolutely qualify under the Genocide Convention as a genocide with genocidal intent. That's the legal mechanism, by the way, genocidal intent, and this qualifies. So that's what the Lebanese are up against in South Lebanon, especially. They're being singled out by Israel and with U.S. support. The Shiite population there, and Hezbollah. So that's completely disingenuous what Jack Keen's saying, but it's the idea that Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy. This is like one of the fundamental obstacles at understanding. It's a false assumption that's such an impediment for regular people in the U.S. media, in general population, to really understand actually what's going on, because it's false. And they build all their strategy and prospective policy on the top of this. That's why it's failing. It's an abject failure. Iran will institute a force majeure. This is not really going to be won through negotiations as such. It's almost already been won through deterrence, because what Iran has done, just that one missile barrage, just the last one, they have created so much tension between the U.S. and Israel. That was Iran's doing. That is the only people who can pull that off is a normative power, because they drew a moral red line, stop killing Lebanese, but you have to back it up with military force. You back up, if a normative power backs up a red line, with a moral red line, with hard power, that qualifies you in the international relations world as a superpower. Regional, I would say, for Iran, not global, but regional. They're qualified as a regional superpower. And it's worked. The results are kind of obvious. You're already seeing tension between the U.S. and Israel. Nobody saw that coming. Why is that happening? It's not organic. Iran made it happen. So that's what Jack Keen and these people are freaking out about, Mark Levine, Lindsey Graham, because the dynamic is flipped already. And it's flipped because of credible deterrence from Iran. That's really that's the only reason we're here, Danny, having this conversation, is because of what the Iranians have stuck their neck out to do for the region, because they have to. They must protect Lebanon, because Israel's already proven that they will use Lebanese civilians or people, Palestinians in Gaza, as leverage in these negotiations. They've already done it. They've cut off aid to the Palestinians as soon as Iran fired missiles at Israeli military targets. They're bombing the Lebanese to sort of derail negotiations. Israel's already guilty of using civilians, the killing, the massacring of civilians, to gain leverage. That's over the sort of negotiations and U.S. decision making. That means that Iran is well within their rights, and as a normative state actor, to include that into the package. And this is what is driving them crazy. That's why they're desperate to delink.
Yeah.